Thanks for tuning in to the 6th episode of the MMA Roundtable. Patrick is not joining us this week, but instead we got our buddy from Buffalo, Dave Beeland, on the roundtable with us. Got a few interesting subjects to broach this week. We have a few fight announcements. Really excited to hear your thoughts about those. The UFC officially to add a women's division, which we'll get to first, and a bunch more. So let's do it. And like I mentioned, we are here with a last-minute replacement. We got Dave filling in for our buddy Patrick. Big shout-out to our listeners and our buddies over at MMA Mental, Ray and Patrick, and obviously Dave for filling in on short notice. You can listen to the MMA Roundtable with Ray and Patrick every month, or with Patrick, Ray, Chris, and I, and sometimes Dave each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific. And I'll pass it off to Ray to talk a little about MMA Mental and upcoming guests and whatnot. Ray?
Mr. Ray?
Maybe he muted himself?
I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
I'm muted myself. Right, this show started great, hasn't it? Right, I've managed to get some good guests lined up for this week. With me and Patrick, we've got 4 guests on this week's podcast. I actually got a text from one of my former guests, and they asked me if I wanted to interview one of the Tough Smashers contestants. So obviously I jumped all over that. So we've got Mike Wilkinson on, who's the lightweight that hasn't fought yet. He's probably going to be fighting next week, I think. So obviously, I don't know how he's going to do, and he won't be able to talk about stuff, but it'll still be interesting to speak to him. Then we've got a guy fresh off a win on Friday at Bellator. We've got Brian Rogers due to come on the show as well. We've also managed to get on UFC bantamweight Marcus Brimage, and also the first ever UFC welterweight champion, Pat Miletich, has agreed to come on the show.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it's a good line. We're happy with that lineup. Fight Diaries coming up as well. I mentioned this last week, so keep a lookout for this. We've got Fight Diaries with Paul the Titan Taylor and Spencer Hewitt. We're gonna speak to them on a daily basis in the build up to their fight and release audio diaries. Spencer's making his BAMMA debut, so that's quite good. And over the last few days as well, we've just set up new forums on MMA Mental, so it's free to come and register an account with us. So people should come and check out the site, www.mmamental.com, and come and register free. And we're looking to set up a new fantasy game as well, but we're looking into that. I mean, that's going to take a few months to set up. But yeah, so come and check out the site.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow, big stuff happening over across the pond with MMA Mental. Pat Miletich, Tough Smashes. You're building your own forum. You're doing big things, Ray.
Yeah, we want to try and build up our own little community if we can. It's just getting people onto it. If people know we're there, then they'll come to us. It's just making people aware of us, really.
Hell yeah. As far as the MMA podcast goes, I'm 90% sure we have Michael Schiavello this week. I'm not 100% positive. I've been talking with him, and kind of like normal, we're flying by the seat of our pants over with the MMA podcast. Last week we had 2 awesome interviews. We had Bristol Morindi on, current Ultimate Fighter 16 contestant, talk to us a little bit about that season, what it was like living in the house, fighting Jacare Souza in Strikeforce, and a crazy story where he actually chased down a rapist wearing only his boxer shorts and then head-kicking the life out of him out in a parking lot. That was a very, very interesting story. And we also had TJ DeSantis on from Sherdog, who talked to us a little bit about his career, and we had a little time to talk about some current issues like TRT, women's MMA, Jones, Silva, super fight, the possibility of that happening. And the MMA podcast, we do it every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And as far as both podcasts goes, ours and this one, you can call in 213-457-3380. Tweet us at the MMA Podcast. I got that up, looking for people mentioning us, and obviously you can visit us at the MMApodcast.com. So yeah, without any further ado, you want to get into this week's Fight Busters? Tell us the answers to last week and give us some clues for this week? Did you mute yourself again, Ray?
Ray.
I'm here. What we'll do is I'll give you last week's clues and give you the answers, and I'll explain how I've came to the answers, which will hopefully get people thinking for this week. Then I'll give you out the three new clues, but we're not going to give out the initials. And then on the MMA Mental podcast and on your own podcast on Wednesday, we'll give out the initials then.
Indeed.
And obviously people can email us in with the answers. I'll give out my email address as well.
Yep, or tweet at MMA Mental or the MMA Podcast. If you tweet at me, I'll forward it along to Ray. Yeah, let's do it, buddy.
And if they're listening live as well, they can obviously ring in with the answers as well.
Yep, and that number one more time. Yep, 213-457-3380. Let's do it.
Okay, so last week's answers. I know these. I think we got all these in the end off air, didn't we? So the first one was the supporter of a backwards man. Backwards man was man backwards is Nam, and supporter is fan. So the answer was Nam fan. A way to pay in Africa. The initials was CK. So a way to pay is a Czech, and a place in Africa was Congo. So that was Czech Congo. And then this is the one that got you all thinking. This was the funny one. Wipe your feet, then eat the meat, or you might be sick. So, and the initials were MH. So wipe your feet on a mat, then eat the meat. So we've got ham, or you might be sick. We've got ill. So it was Matt Hamill.
Heyo!
You're fucking genius, Ray. I wish I was that smart.
Right, I've got some ones here. Now I think one of these is really, really obvious, but I think the other two will get you thinking. Okay, I'm not going to give out the initials this week either, but like we said, we'll give out the initials on our shows on Wednesday. Okay, so Fight Buster number one is close to being a disgrace, driving not to lose. Okay? So close to being a disgrace, driving not to lose. That's clue number one. Okay? Clue number two, I'm pointing in your direction. Don't kick my leg. Are you surprised I can drive moi? Okay.
What?
Right, that's clue number two. So I'm pointing in your direction. Don't kick my leg. Are you surprised I can drive moi? Okay. And clue number three is getting sexual with a biro.
A biro?
Yeah. Getting
What the
sexual
fuck is a
with
biro?
What is a biro?
Yeah, look it up. Getting sexual with a biro. Biro spelled B-I-R-O.
Is it like a bison?
Sorry?
Huh. Is it like a bison?
No, you gotta look it up. So that's the three clues. You can obviously ring in on the number. You can tweet either MMA Mental or MMApodcast.com, or you can email me mmamental@hotmail.com. I'm looking at the minute we are going to in the future get prizes for this game as well. But at the minute, anyone that gets all three will get a shout out on all three of the shows. This show, obviously, your show and my show, and we'll reveal the answers next week. So yeah, and we'll give out the clues again later on in the show as well.
I'm gonna win. I want my prize. I want my $25 gift certificate to Applebee's. I will get it.
I will get it, and I will order hot wings.
With them three, have any of you got any thoughts on what they could be?
No.
I have zero clue for any of those. Jesus Christ. But, Ray, I'm looking forward
maybe
to...
I was thinking someone. If it was alright to say who it is.
Yeah, you can say you think, yeah.
Andre Winner?
No.
Oh, there goes my idea.
Yeah, wow, those all stumped me.
I think the third one is Zoila Frosto Gurgel.
No.
Oh man. But Yeah, we will go over the clues. We will go over the clues one more time in this podcast, and obviously shout them out during both of our Wednesday podcasts. Let's get right down to it. After those ridiculous fight buster clues, normally I have somewhat of a clue. Like when you said wipe your feet, I was thinking, okay, mat maybe. None of those. I'm completely stumped. But let's get into probably the biggest news in MMA this week. We'll start off strong. The UFC to add a women's division. Obviously, the implications for women's MMA are huge. You know, this is the biggest thing that could have happened for women's MMA. The UFC opening up a division or two divisions, and that kind of goes into what I wanted to talk to you all about. In women's mixed martial arts, they have a 125, like we saw Zoila Gurgel fight at last weekend. Bellator, and obviously 135 where you have Ronda Rousey dominating Strikeforce, 145 where you have Chris Cyborg. She should be coming off her suspension soon. As far as weight classes should go, personally, I think a 135 and a 145 should be opened up. But from the rumors I'm hearing, they're only going to open up one weight class. I haven't heard which one yet, but the UFC is obviously very careful to keep their belts at a minimum. You don't want to make it like boxing, where there's 10, 20 belts up on the line. What do you guys think about weight classes and how many should be added for the women's divisions?
I think I also read that he's saying it's going to happen in the future, not necessarily straight away. It's obvious the reason why we're looking at women's MMA at the minute is because of how effective Ronda Rousey is. I mean, she's absolutely phenomenal. The way she's coming in and beating people, and the way and the standard of the women she's beating and the way she's beating them, you can't help but be impressed. With regards to the bouts and boxing, I have to disagree with what you're saying, in the sense of, with boxing, you have 4 different champions at the same weight class, where if UFC brought in 3 different women's weight classes, and I don't think there'd be anything wrong with having 3 different champions at 3 different weight classes, where boxing fails is you have too many champions at the same weight class. So I think it's slightly different. But I think the problem is not having too many champions. I think the problem is not having enough depth, not enough depth to have so many divisions. I think that's... we obviously know we all want to probably see the fight between Ronda Rousey and Cyborg. I know they fight at a different weight, but I'm sure they'd either go up to 145 or they'd meet at catch weight. But, after that, it's hard to know what's next. And the other thing worth noting as well is one of the big news within women's MMA that's been going around this week as well, which has more affected the UK scene, is what happened to Rosie Sexton. I mean, she got completely shafted. She shelled out money to do the expensive drug testing that they're all going on about at the moment. And she shelled out money. I think it cost her $3,000 apparently. And then the fight got cancelled, and she's left with no paycheck, and she's paid out money for something she didn't need to. And she's talking about quitting the sport now, which I think is a real shame.
Wow, that is a real shame, man. I hate hearing stories like that where someone goes through an entire training camp, which we're huge fans. We know what it takes to go through those things. I mean, you are literally pouring out blood, sweat, and tears day in and day out, and to get shafted like that, that's terrible. But as far as women's MMA goes, without beating a dead horse, I wasn't a fan. I am now. I'm totally stoked for women to get the same chance as men do, because I think there was a lack of truly talented women out there. I really feel that even 3 years ago there wasn't much depth, but with the sport blooming like it has, coming onto free television and being in the mainstream, a lot of women who wouldn't have taken the chance originally are taking the chance to become fighters. And I feel that as far as the divisions go, as far as weight, 145 is going to be barren. I mean, there's really not too many women that are 145, I think, that can really hang with the top. I mean, you got Cyborg, Rousey could make the weight. I think 135 will probably be the most talent-rich, but I feel that 125 or lower would be the most stacked. So I think it's good for the sport, and I can't wait to see, what the UFC has in store for us.
Yeah, I think it is kind of shit what happened with Sexton there. Definitely sucks. But back to the subject. I personally, it's not my idea. I've seen it a while ago on the forums at MMA Playground. Someone suggested that when they do that, they should do more of a catch weight and just do like a 140 pound class. And so that way you're combining the bantamweight and the featherweights together. Since there's really not a lot of depth between the two. To me, I think that makes the most sense for the time being until it gets off the ground, see what kind of reception it gets. Once the UFC brings it in there, if it does really, really well, then you can branch off between the two. But for right now, I would think definitely just a catch weight at 140 is perfect. The featherweight's only dropping 5 pounds, and the bantamweight's are only moving up 5. To me, I think that's the way to go.
Yep, I totally agree with that viewpoint, and it kind of makes the most sense for the Rousey-Cyborg fight, which is obviously going to be the main fight that they use to promote women's MMA in the UFC initially. So, yeah, really looking forward to seeing what exactly happens there. Wouldn't really be surprised either way because, anything can happen. But we'll move swiftly on. We're going to try and keep this episode under 90 minutes. Something that was actually hitting MMA news today, Josh Koscheck apparently interested in fighting Nick Diaz. He first said he wanted to fight Nick Diaz during the Super Bowl card, which would be February 2nd. Obviously, that's not going to happen because Nick Diaz doesn't come off suspension until 2 days afterwards, February 4th. It's the same reason why Alistair Overeem was unable to get on that UFC 155 card. But yeah, I've kind of been kicking around the thought of Koscheck versus Diaz in my head all day. Obviously, that would be a trash-talking dream to see Koscheck, who's always trying to troll people, and Nick Diaz, who takes high offense to anybody talking about him, period. It doesn't even need to be an insult. I almost guarantee that stare-down is going to have a shove or two involved if they do fight each other. But I can't really make up my mind whether or not Koscheck is going to be able to use his wrestling to quell Diaz. I think Koscheck is all around a better striker, has better head kicks, I don't know if he's quicker. His footwork isn't as good as Diaz. Diaz, obviously, the stronger fighter, both boxing and at jiu-jitsu. But I think what it's really going to come down to are those power doubles by Josh Koscheck. Really used them very effectively in most of his last fights. But Diaz has excellent takedown defense, and I think that might be the one factor that why in my mind I give a slight edge to Nick Diaz winning that fight. But I was kind of interested in your early thoughts about a potential matchup between Josh Koscheck and Nick Diaz at 170 pounds. Chris?
Yeah, I am super stoked for this fight. I feel that the trash talk is going to be phenomenal. And, that's the thing is that I really feel that Koscheck would just grapple Diaz in this fight. And I'm okay with that. You look at Diaz's history in the UFC. He's had some amazing ground wars with Diego Sanchez. I know, Ray, you've probably seen that fight. Fantastic. Took place mostly on the ground. A lot of crazy, transitions and scrambles. But as far as Koscheck against Diaz, stylistically, I mean, Koscheck has one weapon on the feet, and that's a big right hand. Other than that, very unspectacular on the feet. He uses pressure, uses his wrestling, and who knows where Diaz, where his head is at this point in his career. I mean, he no-showed that Estima grappling super fight. He's had this controversy going on. Who knows what kind of mental shape he'll be in? I mean, obviously, he's never been a weak mental guy, but I think there's a lot more questions as to where he is in his career than whether he can beat Josh Koscheck. I think he can beat Koscheck, but ultimately, if I had to predict a fight at this point before any of the lead-up, I would say Koscheck would definitely win that fight by a decision, by control.
I think Chris brings up a good point there. You never know what the hell's going on in Diaz's head. That's a very, very good point. As for the fight, if it were to happen, I would be stoked for it. I think it'd be great. Like everyone else is talking about, that trash talk and just be out of this world, the back and forth between them. who knows if they didn't let them two go to the stare down because it might break out into all-out fight on stage. Wouldn't surprise me if that happened either between the two. But if the fight were to happen, I think Diaz has a very good chance of beating him. Koscheck has his wrestling, and basically, like Chris said too, is that overhand right, and that's about it. It's all he really has in the stand-up game. Diaz with his boxing, I think he would just pick him apart and just keep jabbing him to death to keep the distance away and win points, just basically jabbing him to death for 3 rounds. If it were to get down the ground, I think Koscheck has his hands full with Diaz. He's so slick off his back that Koscheck would definitely have to be training jiu-jitsu like crazy for that fight. I'm very, very interested in seeing it. Hope it does go down.
I think it's going to be a great fight as well. I think the build-up will be one of the best build-ups we've seen in a long time personally, because you're talking about Diaz and Koscheck and their smack talking. Koscheck loves to talk shit. I mean, we saw what he did to Paul Daly, and it got to the stage where Paul Daly ended up hitting him after the fight, which obviously shouldn't have happened. But Nick Diaz, he bites every time. Like Jake said, you can say hello, good morning to him, he's going to bite your head off. So when Koscheck's, nailing him and throwing everything at him, and once Koscheck now he gets can get a rise out of Diaz, he'll just carry on and carry on and carry on. As for the fight, personally, I think if it's on the feet, Diaz has the advantage. As much as Koscheck has that overhand, that right hand, Diaz isn't somebody that is known for having a weak chin. And Diaz will have the range. He'll keep him at a jab. He'll throw in the power punch just like he does, and he's very effective at doing that. So if it stays on the feet, I could see Diaz winning a decision, and I don't think he'd stop Koscheck, but I think he'd cause Koscheck a lot of damage, because I think he mixes in the pitter-patter punching with the power punching. But I think Koscheck would take him to the ground, and as good as Diaz is off his back, what we've seen with the high-level wrestlers, the people like Koscheck, the people like Fitch, they have got excellent top game, and they know how to stay out of submissions and know how to cause damage. And I just think we've seen Diaz struggle against wrestlers before, Nick and Nate, and I just think that's what would happen. Koscheck would take him down and would literally avoid submissions, land with punches probably from the guard, maybe from half guard. I don't think he'd get past half guard and would win by decision. As for the Diaz-Sanchez fight, that what Chris pointed out, that was an amazing fight, as was the Sanchez-Parisian fight as well. They were both around the same time, and that was when Sanchez was on the rise, but they were both amazing fights, and they were both ground fights as well.
Yeah, looking at Nick Diaz's record, he hasn't fought a wrestler as good as Josh Koscheck in a long, long time, probably since his last stint in the UFC back in 2006. What it might come down to, Koscheck's go-to is his power double, just slams people day in and day out with that. He's rehabbing off of this back injury, and I'm kind of curious to see if he can still generate that power and leverage with his takedowns, because if he's not going 100%, Diaz is kind of like one of these guys, like a BJ Penn, not really spectacular wrestling, but amazing balance and amazing takedown defense, and is not an easy guy to take down, even though he's not, a NCAA D1 champion level wrestler like Josh Koscheck. Let's talk about one more item before we go for. Oh wait, yeah, Chris, did you want to mention something else on Koscheck versus Diaz?
I really do. First off, I just wanted to say that to see that Fraggle-headed buffoon get absolutely toyed is it's kind of a dream of mine, and it rarely happens. I mean, with the GSP fight, we got to see it. The Paulo Thiago fight was just perfecto, but
I was there live for that one.
Yeah, nice. I bet that was awesome.
It was shocking.
Yeah, just to see that stupid bleached fro hit the canvas must have been amazing. But let's talk about Diaz. He's one of my favorite fighters out there. I feel that in my last go around, I didn't really say that enough. He is just absolutely exciting. One of the best in the sport at any weight class, I think. But the issue that I have with Nick Diaz is that I think half of his game, like his brother as well, is just getting inside opponents' heads. Yes, he has fantastic cardio. Yes, he has world-class skills. But do you really think that Nate Diaz could beat Donald Cerrone on his best day? I really don't think so. I think that that's half their game. And if you look at Nick's history in the UFC against Sanchez, Shirk, and Parisian, he just does not do well against grapplers. And you know what? He has evolved since then. But if you look at his biggest wins, they're over a half-hearted BJ Penn, a Paul Daly, who's now in Bellator, Cyborg Santos, who was never relevant, as well as Marius Zaromskis, who just got knocked out in Bellator. So he has a less than stellar record, but he has world-class skills, and I think that's what makes this fight intriguing. I think it is a true test to put him in there against a really, really strong top-game guy.
Yeah, I want to jump in as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Nick Diaz is like Chael Sonnen. He self-promotes. Same with Nate Diaz. Regardless of, like you're saying, about the skills, and obviously you said about him getting inside their opponent's head, people want to see him fight because he just knows how to promote. Just the same way that Sonnen's heavyweight title fight, and Diaz is like that. He can promote anything, and that's what he's a promoter's dream. Dana White probably loves him because as much as great to watch.
It's very true.
Definitely, and that kind of goes into this next upcoming episode of The Ultimate Fighter with Chael Sonnen and John Jones, a fight that I think most people can agree was made more for the trash talking than it was for the actual fight. And talking about that upcoming season of The Ultimate Fighter, it actually came out that it was originally offered to Rampage for Rampage to coach alongside a Chael Sonnen. Rampage turned it down. It was offered to John Jones, who accepted the fight. It's kind of bizarre. This would have been seemingly a good fight for Rampage as far as getting him hyped back up. He's kind of starting to fall down that list of top 205-pounders. Most people who I've spoken with think he is on the decline in the UFC. Odd saying that the reason he turned the fight down was that Chael is a boring fighter. Obviously, that's not the case. I don't know whether he thought Chael posed some legitimate threats to him, or on the flip side, whether Chael just didn't deserve a fight with him. Most people who I've talked to think Page is, spiraling downward and might not be in the UFC much longer. I actually think in 2 or 3 years he'll be not only an afterthought in the 205-pound division, but not a fighter in the UFC anymore. Do any of you guys think Rampage has a future in the Ultimate Fighting Championship?
My view personally on Rampage is if I never see him fight again, then that's fine with me. I've just got no interest in seeing him fight. His legacy has been set. What he did in Pride was amazing. What he did when he first came over to the UFC, after obviously he beat Chuck the Day, the great fight with Henderson before he lost the title to Forrest Griffin. That was good. Let's not forget he was on the Ultimate Fighter before as a coach. He was absolutely awful. He was a terrible coach. He obviously he's very much like a big child in the sense of he's got no discipline. He needs people around and telling him what to do all the time. I'm not really interested in seeing him as a coach. I think he thought what he didn't want to fight Sonnen for was because Sonnen would have pinned him on his back and beat him up for 3 rounds. And he's moaned about fighting wrestlers. Yet when he was given the fight one of the upcoming top strikers, he turned that down as well, which was obviously with Teixeira. Rampage just doesn't want to fight. He just wants to give out. So that's the way I look at it. I don't think it's a loss that he's not on the Ultimate Fighter. And with it, Sonnen and John Jones, as much as people aren't that interested in the fight in a minute, once they've done weeks of the Ultimate Fighter with Sonnen and Jones going at each other, more so Sonnen going at Jones, everyone's going to want to fight.
Yeah, agree with Ray and say I really have no interest in seeing him either as a tough enough coach again. And, he was horrible as a coach. I mean, every episode when one of his fighters was fighting, all you would hear him yelling from the cage is, "Gotta do something. Gotta do something. Come on, man. Gotta do something." I mean, how is that really coaching for somebody? So it's a bittersweet thing for the contestants coming up that they're not getting Rampage. The only thing to be missing out of that is just the back and forth banter. His future in UFC, I personally think that he'll have that one more. Who the hell knows, since he keeps turning everything down. But after that one fight, I think he's gone. Quite honestly, I really don't see it. He just doesn't ever seem to be trying to, move away from his stance. of not being there anymore. He just doesn't seem like he feels like he's not treated right. You know, we heard the story plenty from him all the time about it. Wouldn't surprise me if he went and signed in Bellator.
Yeah, and man, he's just such a bully. He is really the epitome of a bully, and I can't stand bullying. And to see how he treated Ariel Helwani, and when anyone challenges him, and it's in trash talk, but it's all like stupid one-liners. I mean, his shtick worked back in the day, really impressing in fights. I'm like, okay, you can back it up. But now, like you guys have said, if you look at his record since, defending his title, it's less than stellar. Lost to Rashad. He, in my eyes, lost to Machida. Couldn't finish Keith Jardine, which really goes a long way in saying how he is. So, I have to agree with Ray. I could give two shits if he fights again. And as far as turning down Tough, that's the only point where I actually agree with him, because he's already done it twice, you guys. He did it against Forrest, and he did it also against Rashad, and he didn't do well at all. And I can't blame him for not wanting to spend 2 months putting all of his energy into that. So ultimately, I just hope he can grow the hell up, like you guys are saying, because I mean, what kind of example is he set when he's just trash talking guys, not even in his weight, like Mitch and Sonnen? It just makes no sense to me.
No. Wasn't Mitchell the one that started with him, though?
Yeah, started what? Take the high road, man.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, got a point there.
Yeah, he was actively making fun of fighters. It was kind of funny him calling Daryl Schoonover titties, but at the same time, you're a coach, and this sport is bred on respect. He showed zero respect to the other coach, obviously, and the contestants of that show, and really kind of turned me off. We actually had somebody call in just now, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to patch you through. It's something I'll work on between this roundtable and the next roundtable. We do really appreciate you calling in, but if you would, if it's possible to dilute your question or comment into 140 characters, I have Twitter up, and I'll definitely read your tweet on air. But
try calling back, man.
No, he actually tried calling twice, and because you're hosting this Skype call, I can't add him to the conference.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it looks like next roundtable I'll need to figure out these internet issues I'm going through with Comcast in Chicago. So I'm hosting the call and can answer it and add it to the conference. But yeah, at least we know now that if somebody else is hosting the Skype call, we can't patch them in, unfortunately. So it looks like it's going to be Skype only. We really appreciate you calling. If you want to call back next Monday or this upcoming Wednesday during the MMA podcast, we would really appreciate that. So I was kind of dealing with that when you all were talking about Rampage, but for the most of it, I really agree that Rampage always had that sort of childish outlook on fighting, and he could get through it with just dynamite hands, just put people down. But he's starting to get a little older now. I think he's 36 or 37, and I don't really see that those hands are losing power day by day by day, and unless something crazy happens, I honestly don't see him in the UFC for the next 2 or 3 years.
Not only that, but Rampage isn't even throwing the punches anymore.
Yeah,
he's just basically just standing there. I mean, you don't see him doing much of anything.
That's a great point, man. That is
exactly.
A very good point. He may still have power, but how are you going to knock someone out when you don't throw it or you're not finding their chin?
Yeah, I mean, to his defense, I mean, he is fighting basically a wrestler, so you got to be a little leery about throwing those big power shots, because if you miss or, they're just going to go for the takedown right away. But at the same time, he's still got to take chances, and he's not doing that.
Exactly. So before we move on to our next topic, I guess because Patrick's gone and Dave is filling in for him, he'll be on Team MMA Mental for this. You all ready for Guess That Tweet?
Woo!
Woo! Let's do it.
Let's do
all right. This special edition of Guess That Tweet is a Hurricane Sandy edition. That's what everyone's been talking about. And I picked out a bunch of tweets from the MMA world. Wow, it sounds like somebody just took a violent fall.
Oh, sorry, that was me. I knocked my keyboard.
Damn it, Ray.
Damn it, Ray.
First Patrick, now this. I think
Jesus.
this bodes well for us on the MMA podcast.
It does. And going into this Guess That Tweet, it's tied up 2-2, the MMA Podcast and MMA Mental. So this will be a tiebreaker, at least for a week. And I'll get straight to it. Damn you, Hurricane Sandy, for thwarting my interview with Bob Mirowitz. We plan to discuss Jeff Blatnick. Bob's on Long Island. Be safe. And was that Crooklyn? I don't know her real name, like Stephanie Daniels or something. Was it Crooklyn, Josh Gross, Ariel Helwani, or Franklin McNeil unable to get to Long Island for an interview today because of Hurricane Sandy?
I'll go for Franklin McNeil.
I'm going to have to say Big Nose, Helwani.
I'm going to go Josh Gross, just to be weird.
And the answer is, drumroll please. Josh Gross, score one for the MMA Podcast.
Oh, it feels so good.
And there was zero collusion, Ray. I know you're always very, very cynical, but I promised I didn't give Chris any of the answers going into this.
We don't even talk to each other anymore.
No, I hate Chris. But number 2, I'll give you a slew of heavyweights, and you have to guess who tweeted, "Why does the news find it essential to send people out in hurricanes? We get it. It's windy and rainy." Was that tweeter Stipe Miocic, Stefan Struve, Pat Barry, or Matt Meathead Mitrione?
Right, I'm going to guess it's an American because obviously the storm's in America. I'm going to guess it's Pat Barry.
When you first started saying that, I immediately thought of Mitrione, so I'm going to go with Mitrione.
I also second that. Good choice, Dave. Wonderful.
Wonderful, but not really as wonderful as you might think. None of you got it right. The correct answer was Stipe Miocic.
Oh, it doesn't sound like Stipe.
Yeah, I'm fucking winning, you guys. That's all I care about.
Cheat.
Chris, the only regular to not get a Guess That Tweet victory. So through 2 rounds, Chris has the game's lone point.
It's game.
We're going a little dirty with this one, so if your 4-year-old is listening, definitely apply the earmuffs. For the record, everyone I've met named Sandy has been a cunt. And was the tweeter there Miguel Torres, Forrest Griffin, Jason Miller, or Joe Rogan?
I'm going to go Forrest Griffin.
Definitely sounds like a Griffin one, but I'm going to say Miller.
Can you reread the options, please? I know I do this every week, but this brain is failing me.
For the record, everyone I've met named Sandy has been a cunt, and the choices are Miguel Torres, Forrest Griffin, Jason Mayhem Miller, and Joe Rogan.
I'm going to say Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan does like to drop lots of C-bombs, but Dave gets the point on this one. It's Jason Mayhem Miller.
Woohoo! Dave, I swear to God, I will choke you with a hot wing.
Better get an extra hat.
Extra spicy. Alright. The 4th tweet. I swear the generator I just bought was for the fridge and microwave, not my Xbox and laptop. Hashtag Hurricane Sandy. And I got a bunch of lightweights for you. Was it Joe Lozon, Darren Crookshank, Chris Bad Boy Tickle, or Benson Henderson?
I'm going to guess Joe Lozon.
Crookshank's a gamer. Seems like you more like say something about zombies. I'm going to go with Ray's guess too. I say Lozon.
Me as well. I know he plays Xbox religiously.
Ding, 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 ding. All three of you get a point for that one. Chris and Dave both have 2. Ray with a measly 1 point.
Dave, don't fuck with me. This is my only chance of winning. Throw it.
Do it for MMA Mental, Dave.
Hell yes.
All right, round 5, and we have a bonus question in case Chris and Dave and potentially Ray are tied up at the end of this. Hurricane Sandy update. Come at me, bitch. That's it. Was it Patricky Pitbull, his brother Patricio Pitbull, Kurt Pellegrino, or Eddie Alvarez? I'm giving you some Bellator guys.
I'm going Eddie Alvarez.
I'm going to go with Eddie, too.
Me as well, because I know that he just moved to the Black Stallions in Florida. Pitbull brothers obviously aren't that, intuitive, and Kurt Pellegrino lives up in the Northeast. Even though he'd be hit by it, I don't really see him saying it, so I, as well, am going with Eddie Alvarez.
And you should have gone with Kurt Pellegrino, Chris, because that was the correct answer.
Fuck! I had a feeling to change my answer, but guess what? I'm still in this!
Alright, it's down to Chris and Dave for the final round. Ray, you're out of it because you suck total ass. No,
Do this for MMA Mental, Ray.
Hey, does anyone know the Marines March from Tripoli song? Could we recite that real quick, as Americans?
I have no idea what you're talking about. So
Thank
I'll
God.
just read this fucking tweet. And it's a bunch of MMA Podcast alumni you're going to be picking from. And the tweet is, shitty mood today. Immortal technique will turn it violent by training time. And is it Chris Lieben, Ian McCall, Jeff Hoagland, or Bristol Marundi?
I'm going to say Bristol.
Chris?
Bristol.
No, you have to go with different ones.
No, I don't
it's a
have to do
tiebreaker.
anything.
Damn it!
Make it go different.
You have got to go different on the goddamn tiebreaker, Chris.
Yeah, no. Guess what? If we tied, then it's tied, and that's a tie, and I win. I don't have to do anything.
Nope.
But choose one that I think it is. I'm going Bristol too.
Well, guess what? You're both wrong. It's Ian McCall, and we're going into the double bonus round. Okay,
Wow.
you bastards.
And it's
All
still
right.
a tie.
You know what? How about this? Switch it up. I'll go first, then he can go. That way there's none of this, well, you're just picking the stuff that he's going for.
What are you talking about?
Stop being a girl.
I know, right? Whatever a gill is, stop being it. All right.
Yeah.
So for our double bonus round tweet, knowledge is power, and the mustache is king. Please donate to my Movember efforts. And is the owner of that tweet Tom Lawler, Patrick Cote, Alan Belcher, or Wilson Govea? Chris?
That's definitely Tom Lawler.
Come on, man. That's what I was going to pick. Just to change it up, I'll say Cote. I mean,
and
why not?
we have a winner off of this tweet. And the winner, in his first appearance on the MMA Roundtable,
Fucker!
Dave Beelan.
Good thing he picked Lawler
Yeah, right?
first.
Fucking hate everything. I hate it all.
So in 6 or in 5, because you hosted one, Chris is 0 for 5, and your boy Buffalo Dave 1 for 1. His first appearance on the MMA Roundtable.
You know what? I'm gonna
Taking
stop
it home.
Ron. That's it.
I'm retiring.
Taking it home for MMA Mental.
This is the Raptors Jackson of MMA Podcast.
Hey,
I'm just gonna
we had
myself to sleep. I'm gonna cut myself to sleep.
if we had a video chat, we'd be doing the discount double check.
Yeah, right?
Hey, Raptors!
Sounds fun.
Oh man, so congrats to Buffalo Dave, and now MMA Mental holds a 3-2 edge on the MMA podcast as far as guess that tweet. Mm-hmm. And Chris will never win the game. But we will get to Chris's favorite fighter, Donald Cerrone, for our next two topics we want to talk about. The first thing is Donald Cerrone kind of frustrated that he's got to wait on Anthony Pettis. He has sustained an injury a few months ago that postponed the fight, and now all of a sudden he has staph infection. It's unsure how long that fight's going to be put off till a fight that was rumored to be for number one title contendership. Cerrone saying he isn't sure whether or not he wants to keep on waiting on Anthony Pettis. He just wants to get in there and fight. And we'll start it off with Chris, because I know you're a huge Cowboy Cerrone fan. You know, he's a real gritty fighter. He is truly one of the best all-around fight. Like, when I think all-around fighters, one of the first names that pops in my head is Donald Cerrone, because so many guys have a wheelhouse they've always got to regress to, whether it's their boxing, their jiu-jitsu, more often than not, their wrestling. But Donald Cerrone, he's just as deadly standing up as he is on the ground, and the question that I kind of wanted to pose to you all is whether he should wait on Anthony Pettis or just move on and fight another guy.
Nothing matters anymore. But yeah, I'm going to break that down for you. Anthony Pettis is a wonderkind from the WEC who has had, I think, the worst UFC career to date. I mean, you look at his fight with Guida, a fight that he should have won, and it was basically takedown, scramble for a submission. He couldn't submit Guida, and he had, I think, 18 to 20 different opportunities to do so. That fight proved to me that he just wasn't ready. I mean, if you can't beat a natural featherweight in Clay Guida when you have the skills that, you know, you possess, that says a lot in itself. Then he had a absolute wrestling clinic against Jeremy Stephens, who's a tough opponent. But Jeremy Stephens is nowhere near top 20, and he barely beat Jeremy Stephens. Follow that up with the highlight reel head kick KO against, Joe Lozon, and yeah, fantastic finish. But how long did that take? Like, a minute, 60 seconds, something like that. So, I mean, the guy just, we have learned nothing since he moved over to the UFC. His career at this point is still hinged on that Showtime kick from WEC 53 in December 2010. I mean, that's basically what people still remember him for. And, you know, he lost his title shot against the winner of Maynard, Edgar, and eventually, you know, I don't remember what exactly happened, but he lost his title shot. So taking on a guy like Cerrone, I really feel that Cerrone has, like you said, just a giant toolbox. He can pick and choose what he wants to use against someone. The only black mark in his entire career was that fight against Nate Diaz, and that was because he just got plain pissed. You know, I mean, leading up to the fight, he was just angry, and I think that's why he lost that fight. But like you said, he has some of the most amazing jiu-jitsu skills at lightweight. I mean, the guy is a whirling dervish on the ground. He strings submissions together. You know, he puts triangles and arm bars together. On the feet, he's absolute dynamite. His boxing is definitely a little bit lacking, but he makes for that in spades with his Muay Thai, which he has absolute perfect technique. So I've got Cerrone in this one all day long. Pettis has fought 3 times since December 2010, and Cerrone has fought how many times? I believe it's 7 or 8. Something like that. So not only has he put in the time, but he has looked outstanding, save for one fight. So I can't blame him for being frustrated that, he's not going to be able to fight Pettis after the trash talk. But we'll see.
So you think he should wait?
You know what? I think he should do whatever he feels is necessary for his career. There's tons of guys at lightweight to keep his, to keep his mojo going. I mean, you got a lot of guys out there. He's on a 2-fight win streak. He decisioned Jeremy Stephens, knocked out Melvin Gillard. So who would I put him against? I don't know, but I don't blame him for wanting to move on. I really just whatever he wants to do, I support it. He's one of my favorite top 3 fighters.
Right, looking at the fight, what you were saying about Cerrone and Diaz, I have to disagree with what you were saying about that fight. I think you're taking quite a lot of credit away from Diaz, because after Diaz did that to Cerrone, he looked quite impressive against Jim Miller as well. So I don't think that was, a one-off. I think Diaz basically outclassed Cerrone on the feet, and Cerrone just never got going because Diaz just shut him down and caused him a lot of damage. I think Cerrone, and I think probably a lot of people underestimated Diaz for that fight. Going back to what Jake said about Pettis losing the title shot, what happened was when he won his fight against Benson Henderson with that kick, he was supposed to then fight the winner of Edgar Maynard, but Edgar Maynard drew, so there was about an 8-month wait for them to fight again. So rather than obviously wait, Pettis took a fight against Guida, lost that fight, therefore lost his number one spot. I mean, he then went on to beat Jeremy Stevens in pretty much a lackluster fight, and then he obviously had the spectacular head kick over Joe Lozon, who was coming off the big win over Malvin Gillard. Donald Cerrone Pettis is going to be an amazing fight, and I'm sure it will happen eventually. But you've got to think, Donald Cerrone wants to get in there and fight and move his way up the rankings, and he wants to get near that title. He wants to earn some money. So I think it'd be silly to wait, personally. I mean, I want to see these guys fight as often as possible because they're all so exciting to watch. So I'd rather not see him wait. I'd rather see him take on someone else. If you're up near the top of that division, it shouldn't matter who you fight. You should beat them anyway. And then either that gets him the next title shot, or he fights Pettis later on in the year when Pettis is back.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Chris. I'm thinking he should kind of do what he wants to do. But the only problem is if he takes on an opponent, does he get to be as high ranked as opponent as Pettis is right now? And if he were to lose it, that really, really puts a damper into his hopes of getting a title shot. I mean, well, he would still put a damper in his hopes if he lost to Pettis too, but then you're fighting a less of a fighter too. Who else out there right now could he potentially fight? That's the next big question, you know what I'm saying? I really do want to see him wait and fight him, though. I really want to see that fight, something fierce. Personally, was he the one also, too, that had tax problems? Because wasn't there a rumored fighter, and it was Cerrone that the tax man came looking for?
I'm not sure.
Know? Yeah, I haven't heard that.
I could swear I saw something not too long ago saying where he was in tax trouble, and they took a huge portion out of it, one of his last fights. So,
yeah, I know he did.
Frustrated too.
He mentioned something about his bills in the quote, which I've got right here in front of me. He said, "We were supposed to go in Denver. No. Okay, we'll be ready in December. No. Now we'll actually be ready in January. Now is it February? March? How long can you just wait? I don't know. I understand the guy's hurt, but I got bills to pay too."
Yeah. Then he tweets a picture, was it about a month or two ago, with him spending a couple $1,000 in materials to add on at the range. So who knows what this guy's deal is.
Definitely. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about kind of is surrounding Donald Cerrone as well, saying that the extreme sports restrictions the UFC has thrown out there suck. If you're unfamiliar with the situation, the UFC has recently said that they're going to start working into contracts clauses that prohibit fighters from going out and doing things like competing in extreme sports. Donald Cerrone is big in both bull riding and in wakeboarding. I'm not sure if bull riding's something he has done yet, but it's something he's expressed a lot of interest in doing. And I also have his quote for that as well, saying, quote, "That would be some serious shit. It's the opportunity of a lifetime to get on one of those bulls. The answer is 100% no, I'm sure, but it doesn't hurt to ask, you know?" And the theoretical it kind of put into my mind is whether or not it's an ethical thing for the UFC to prohibit their fighters who, you know, all of these dudes are alpha males. Most of them are in their 20s, some in their 30s, all obviously able-bodied, being cage fighters. But it's kind of a tricky situation when you have a lot of these guys who want to get into other ventures that are dangerous. You know, you had Frank Mir getting that really bad motorcycle accident. Jose Aldo, I think, injured his foot in a motorcycle accident. which is why his fight against Edgar has been postponed. It's rumored for January, where we'll actually talk about our early thoughts on that fight toward the end of the podcast. Personally, I think it's a really kind of unfortunate situation that a lot of guys have gotten themselves injured before fights doing these. And, I don't necessarily agree with the UFC putting themselves out there saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. But at the same time, I totally get it. You had a fight card canceled at UFC 151, and it wasn't necessarily because of extreme sports. Henderson and Koscheck both injured training for fights, but it's kind of a necessary step, because if you don't, you'll see guys just going out there, like I mentioned before, Aldo Mir getting injured, and you really can't have that, especially if you're trying to promote a big fight where these guys are fighting in it. Dave?
Yeah, I think that the UFC, by doing that, is kind of just saving themselves. I personally don't see nothing wrong with it. A lot of the major sports do the same exact thing with contracts. You got to protect yourself at the end of the day. It's a business thing. It does suck for the fighters because a lot of them make money by doing this, by doing side things and stuff like that. It's a very touchy situation. I think that, hang on, I completely lost my track. I think the easiest way would be, let them guys do it, but give them a couple month window to do something. If they feel like doing it, talk to the UFC brass, talk to Dan, talk to Lorenzo. Like Cerrone wants to do the bull riding. Well, fine, okay. Well, then obviously you don't want to book him in a fight between those couple months. Maybe working on something like that, so each side can come to a compromise with it. Obviously, if you're going to be in a fight, you don't want to be doing all that stuff. But if you got nothing going on for a while, you don't have a fight coming up, why not do that? Just don't go looking to the UFC to pay for your insurance if you get hurt.
I can see where they're coming from personally. I mean, they do it, like you say, in other sports. I mean, obviously we follow different sports from different countries, but obviously our biggest sport over here is soccer. And it's within your contract. These fighters, just like the footballers, they're assets to the company. They're worth a lot of money to the company. They sell tickets, they get bums on seats, they sell pay-per-views. What good is an asset if it's broken? And at the end of the day, they've chosen this path. They want to be professional sportsmen, and that's part and parcel of the job. Is you can't do risky stuff. They get paid good money when they fight, especially the guys towards the top. They've got a sense of duty to look after themselves, to be able to fight for the company, to be able to fight for the fans. So yeah, as much as it is a shame for the fighters, unfortunately, as hard as it is, they're not being put first in the situation, because the bigger picture says we need you fit and healthy. And obviously, I remember Frank Mir. It took him a while to come back to himself after that leg break. I mean, I remember him. He got knocked out by Brandon Vera. He struggled against a guy coming off the Ultimate Fighter who wasn't very good, and it took him a while to get back to himself, and obviously where he is now.
I would love a world where Donald Cerrone can do the things that he wants to do. I mean, he's obviously a thrill seeker, and it shows in his fighting style. The guy loves to go out there and put it all on the line. But like you guys have brought up, all three of you, is the fact that this is a job. This isn't playtime, and if you go out there and you get injured, and you're putting yourself in unnecessary risk when you go out there riding a bull or wakeboarding, which he likes to do. So the only way that I could see Cerrone having an argument for this is, well, when I signed my initial contract with the UFC, there was nothing, in the fine print that said, you can't take these high risk, take these high risks by doing risky business. But at the end of the day, things change. Look at the healthcare plan that the UFC adopted. Nobody was bitching about that. Things have to change, and for the right reasons. And I absolutely support the UFC putting the boot on these extracurricular activities, because the last thing we need is another injury. I mean, we've put up with it enough for the last year, and I completely agree with what the UFC is doing.
Yeah, the story of summer 2011 and probably the main story of the entire year of 2012 is this injury bug that has gone around. I think just about every card, either the main event or the co-main, has either been altered or switched up or something because of an injury, and I really hope these fights going forward, which we have a few to talk to after our Bonehead of the Week segment, aren't plagued by that same injury. And before we get to our Boneheads of the Week, Ray, you want to shout out those Fight Busters clues one more time?
Yeah, and I know, obviously, for now people can't ring in, so if you know the answers, you can email me at mmamental@hotmail.com, or you can tweet at mmamental or at MMA Podcast. Right, the three clues then. So clue number 1, close to being a disgrace, driving not to lose. Okay. Clue number 2, I'm pointing in your direction, don't kick my leg, I'm surprised I can drive moi.
Drive moi? Like moi?
Like a kiss, yeah.
No, like moi.
Oh, like me.
You've got to work it out. Moi.
Oh, like moi, like me. Oh, all right.
Number 3, getting sexual with a biro.
I'm actually gonna look up what a biro is right now. What, like, I've never heard the term biro in my entire life. Biro.
Number 3 is the easiest one.
It is a Hungarian surname meaning judge. Is that what you're talking about?
No.
No?
No, not at all.
Damn it, Ray, just tell us what a biro is.
No, you can't. That's the whole point.
That's the answer.
Why don't you Google it?
Biro, you've got the answer.
Is a biro related to the gyro, the Greek food of lamb and meat in a tortilla?
It's
a gyro. It's a gyro.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
How are you spelling biro out of interest?
B-I-R-O?
Everyone calls it gyro, though.
How are you spelling biro?
B-I-R-O?
Yeah, I've just put biro into Google and it's brought up the answer straight away.
Really? I must be retarded.
Great ball, guys.
A ballpoint pen? I don't know. I have zero. Getting sexual with a ballpoint pen. I've actually done that a few times. But yeah, let us get to our boneheads of the week, shall we?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're very
Yes.
close, by the way, with what you just said.
Alright, I'll start us off with our bonehead of the week. And my bonehead is the Palms Casino pissing off Dana White, which is obviously never a good idea. But Dana White is a giant gambler. He has been notorious for going on these gambling binges where he'll spend literally $250,000 in the span of a month or two. Also known for tipping very well. Actually, a article that I read today, once in a 2-month span, tips alone, he tipped different dealers $100,000. People said that he literally changed people's lives. He tipped so much. He's known for going to steakhouses and he'll have a $15,000, $20,000 check, and he'll leave a $10,000 tip. Obviously his 10% stake in the UFC is paying off very excellently. But the Palms Casino, it's really unknown why. I'm sure the story is going to come out eventually. But the Palms Casino cut his credit line in half, which is kind of an insult, especially to a whale like Dana White, and especially to, White isn't only a whale. He doesn't only bring all of this gambling money to Palms, but they have the UFC finales at the Palms. He brings them business, and apparently Dana White has cut off all ties between the UFC and the Palms Casino. Just really a boneheaded move. Hurts, obviously, business with the Palms not having the Ultimate Fighter finales there. It hurts the dealers who, normally would be getting these exorbitant 4- or 5-figure tips, and now Dana White apparently isn't going there to gamble, isn't bringing the UFC there. All because those idiots at the Palms Casino decided to cut his credit line in half. Ridiculous.
Not only ridiculous, not only boneheaded, but probably the biggest mistake they've ever made as a business. And
probably.
of the week is, who the fuck let John Copenhaver, a.k.a. War Machine, out of prison? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing to society? You're letting a guy who started out as one of the greatest natural talents ever, started training at age 11 with Oleg Toktarov, and you're taking, that guy who then went on to become this beautiful mess on The Ultimate Fighter, who burns bridges at every turn. He had a Bellator contract. He got released from the UFC. He's used slurs on Twitter against President Obama, and just a real mess of a guy. He beats people up at will at bars. He goes to a bar and gets in fights and really beats the shit out of people. They had to put a spit bag over him at one point. That was on TMZ. So you have this guy, and he's also done porn at one point. So he got incarcerated for a year, and this isn't the first time, if you think about it. He's actually been in there multiple times. He comes out, says he's going to change. I think he has a kid and a wife, and he just keeps on going back. Obviously, the dude is a bona fide bonehead.
You better hope he doesn't listen to this podcast, bro. Jesus Christ.
I just say what I feel, man, at all times. So, John, don't take it personally, but I think you're a bonehead.
I'm pretty sure he beat the shit out of someone just for asking for a second form of ID because his name is War Machine. Like, that's pretty understandable. Yeah, please, dear God, I hope he and Ronda Rousey do not listen to our podcast.
The last thing we need is for Ronda to hear about how much poop we eat. But
I
John,
eat so much.
Get your shit together. You're a bonehead, and not only are you a bonehead, but the facility you were in, they're a bonehead for letting you out. I mean, you are just wrecking havoc on society.
Do you remember why he changed his name to War Machine?
Boredom?
No, there was a reason.
Bonehead.
No, do you not remember? Do you not know what the reason was?
Nah, I don't remember.
I actually remember hearing it, and I forget. Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what it was then. When he used to be John War Machine Copenhaver. This is when he was in the UFC, and the WWE wouldn't let him use that because that was the name of one of their characters. They had a wrestler called Rhino, and he was the War Machine, and they basically they trademarked it. So because they trademarked it, he went by and changed his name by deed poll because they couldn't stop him from using it because that was his actual name.
How do you feel Marvel? How do you think Marvel feels about that? They can't use War Machine in their promos for Iron Man? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's what happened between. And he said he's not going to let some fag wrestler stop him from using his nickname.
Whoa!
That's why.
Heyo!
That's why he did it. That's why he did it. There's the story for you. I watched too much MMA. Right, my bonehead of the week. Now, before I'm going to say this, before I tell you the bonehead, I'm going to say, on this season of Ultimate Fighter, Matt Secor is an absolute dick. He's just not coming off well.
Is that the dude with the nipple tattoo?
No, he's the one that loses the decision. He's the one that he just comes across as a knob. I think I don't mind either guy. I like
never wears a shirt.
No, you got the wrong guy. Right, so Matt Secor versus Michael Hill, a pretty one-sided fight. First round went one way when Michael Hill kept the fight on the feet. The next two rounds went to Secor, who he had Hill's back for quite a long, for like half of each round, and it was clear that he'd won that fight. And then Dave White comes in and reads out the decision, and it's a split decision to Michael Hill. So 2 of the 3 judges thought that a guy who's had his back taken for 2.5 minutes of each round actually did enough to win the fight, which was just crazy. So my bonehead of the week is the 2 judges that obviously don't know how to score fights.
Moving on to my bonehead of the week, it will be none other than Mr. Jason Mayhem Miller, who tweeted that he is now out of the woods. I don't think anyone really gives a damn that he was even in the woods to begin with. Just another ploy of him acting all crazy and stupid, and God help us all.
Right? Yeah.
What do I say about that?
Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful summation.
No, yeah, it's concise, to the point.
Let's vote, boys. Let's vote.
All right. Part of me really wants to vote for whoever the hell let War Machine out of prison, but I think I'm going to vote for Jason Mayhem Miller simply because, he didn't just say, "Oh, I'm out of the woods," blah blah blah, but he he dissed the UFC, the company that made him all of this cash, and really kind of was serious about it, saying that the UFC wouldn't pay for a knee surgery, and Dana White quickly replied, posting up an email that he got from a UFC employee, and he simply asked the UFC employee to send records of what they've paid for. And the fact was, the UFC would have paid for a knee injury, just Mayhem Miller didn't do what he needed to do, a la go to a doctor, send the UFC required information, and it was really apparent that the UFC would have paid for a knee surgery, and Jason Miller, for some reason, was just trying to throw the UFC, the company that gave him the Ultimate Fighter role. You know, he was definitely a mismatched opponent against Michael Bisping, kind of only earned that because of his stint on MTV. Really kind of a head scratcher why he's so, pissed with Dana White and not wanting to be truthful and fair, and that's a pretty staunch accusation. So just for that bullshit, I'm voting for Mayhem.
That's a very interesting take on everything, and I just want to say, guys, great summation and boneheads for the week. This is a really tough one for me because you have idiot judges, which isn't anything new. You have Jason Mayhem Miller, who, in the last month has made an absolute mockery of himself. And then you have the Palms Casino, which is a business decision. So it's really hard to choose between the three. Ultimately, Mayhem, I really don't care what he does. I mean, at this point, the guy is just crying for help. So, figure that out. Hill versus Secor, man, I've seen so many of these decisions that it doesn't faze me. So I'm going with the Palms. I think I'm going with that because, Jake, you brought up the fact that not only has Dana brought a business there over the years, especially in the infancy of the company where he wasn't a high roller. He brought the beginning stages of the UFC when they were first trying to get their business going, and he's a high roller and he helps people out, and they cut his credit limit in half. Man, that is a slap in the face. So Palms Casino, you're my bonehead of the week. Guess what? You lose.
I'm voting for the Palms Casino as well. I mean, talk about bad business. I mean, you've got a guy who's throwing his money at you, not only at you, but at your employees as well, and at other people in the area. I mean, imagine working there, and you're doing, your normal job and getting whatever your hourly rate is, which is probably not great, and you get a $10,000 tip. That's mental. I mean, talk about changing
MMA
life.
mental.
MMA mental.
There you go. But yeah, so for that reason, I'm voting for Palms Casino. It's just unbelievable.
I'm also going to go with Palms Casino as my bonehead of the week. It's basically the same reason why you guys mentioned. No need to really repeat it again, but that's definitely my choice. They're just retards for doing that.
Beautiful.
Definitely. So yeah, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, we had a few fight announcements come out, and I want to go around the roundtable with you all about your early thoughts on it. We'll start with the one that's closest, the Ultimate Fighter 16 finale, scheduled for December 15th. And obviously that's going to feature a lot of fighters on the current season of the Ultimate Fighter going against each other. We'll see a champion crowned and whatnot, and a heavyweight fight that'll probably make the main card. We have Pat Barry versus Shane Del.
Brandon's father.
Pat Barry versus Shane Del Rosario. Both of these guys not necessarily close to title contendership in the heavyweight division, but both of them known for having pretty solid chins and being kind of versatile, mainly striking based. Thinking about it, I love Pat HD Barry. I really want to see him go far in the UFC, but I don't see him getting through Shane Del Rosario. Shane's only loss is to Stipe Miocic by TKO. It's a loss he's just coming off. And Pat Barry is 2-4 in his last 6 fights. His only wins coming against Joey Beltran and Christian Moorcraft. Dude does have, absolute iron chin, even though he did lose to LeVar Johnson in the first round recently. Just showed a lot of resiliency in that Chick Congo fight, even though it was Chick Congo who ended up on the right end of the stick as far as that section of resilience goes. But dude got rear naked choked by Mirko Krokop when Mirko Krokop was at the tail end of his career and losing to everybody. And I think Shane, he has youth on his side, still in his 20s, big guy, he's 6'4", has a 78-inch reach, and that's why I'm giving this one to Shane Del Rosario.
Yeah, I think Del Rosario has a very, very good chance to finish this fight. The guy has some phenomenal striking. We've seen it already. If you're familiar with Strikeforce, you've seen this guy in Strikeforce. He's looked good there too. Barry's one of those guys that he's just not big enough to really hang in there with the upper tier and those guys real close to, those top 10 guys in the UFC. His size just isn't there. He's definitely too big to go down to 205. He's just stuck where he's at. He's facing a very, very tough challenge with Del Rosario. Only way I see him come to top is if he gets that lucky shot, truthfully.
Absolutely. Del Rosario has a win by submission in Strikeforce by omoplata. Now, that is fantastic considering he's a big guy. He's a heavyweight. To have an omoplata at heavyweight is fantastic. Very underrated ground game. So, Pat Barry hasn't ever been fantastic. He's a crowd pleaser. He's an entertainer. He's a funny guy, but he will never, ever make waves in the division. And I see this one being a fan favorite and being a scrap on the feet until Del Rosario decides to take it to the ground. I got him winning by submission, and I guess at the end of the day, the last thing I have to say about this is, God, who cares?
I like Chris's last line. I don't really care that much for this fight, if I'm being honest. I mean, Pat Barry was cut from the UFC, if I remember rightly, so this is obviously his first fight back. Del Rosario, he didn't look great in his last fight. I don't think either guy is going to make an impact in the heavyweight division. I think they're probably looking at both of these at the minute around the top 40 mark, which, it's not really that exciting. I think if the fight stays standing, I think Pat Barry has the potential to knock anybody out. He's got, deadly leg kicks, and obviously he can punch. If the fight goes to the ground, obviously, then Barry doesn't have much of a ground game. So going on the fact that I think eventually Del Rosario will take it down, we'll go for a round 2 submission. But the longer he stays on the feet, then I think the more danger he is. I also think the longer the fight goes, the more it suits Barry, because Del Rosario got tired in his last fight, where Barry's in the past has shown he can fight for 15 minutes. Cardio isn't normally an issue for him.
It's a very good point.
Definitely. We'll move on to a much more interesting and compelling matchup. Rumored for this upcoming February of 2013, we have Rashad Evans linked to a bout with Antonio Rogerio Nogueira, Little Nog. I think this is kind of a mismatch straight off of the bat. I really honestly think Rashad Evans is one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the light heavyweight division, even though Vitor Belfort and Lyoto Machida gave John Jones problems in the first round. Rashad Evans was really the only recent fighter who has been able to grind out a full 5-round, 25-minute fight with John Jones. And even though he did lose that fight, I think if you fight John Jones and you're not finished, kind of like with Anderson Silva, it's impressive. So he fought John Jones with the whole 25 minutes. Before that, came off wins against 4 pretty decent guys in Thiago Silva, a couple of aging guys in Quentin Jackson and Tito Ortiz, and then the win against Phil Davis, which is the main fight that I look at. Davis pounded out Little Nog to a 3-round decision victory, and when he fought Rashad Evans, that was also a 25-minute fight. He did not look like he had a chance. Rashad Evans had his way with Phil Davis, just with superior stand-up and superior wrestling, and just, I try and avoid MMA math as much as possible, but just going on how Phil Davis was able to grind out Little Nog and had zero chance against Rashad Evans. I have Rashad winning this one, and I think we finally see a finish. His last 2 fights have gone a combined 50 minutes. I think we'll see Rashad Evans get a standing up finish. I'm going to say second round TKO.
I think this is a good fight. I mean, Rashad's obviously towards the top end of the division. Little Nog is probably around the top 10. So I think the fight makes sense. And also, Little Nog has got the status of what he's done in the sport in the past. He's obviously one of the standout guys from Pride, come over from Pride. But Rashad, I think he's a fantastic fighter. I think the fight will take place on the feet. Little Nog has very good boxing. But Evans, I just think, has the power advantage. And I think eventually Evans will land and he'll put Nogueira away. But I don't remember the last time I seen Nogueira get knocked out. But I think Rashad will get a TKO. And I'll go second round as well. But I am actually looking forward to this fight. I think this will be a good fight to watch.
Strength of competition, boys. Strength of competition. Let's take a look. Oh, Dave.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with both of you. I'm going to agree with Jake and say this is a mismatch. I'm going to agree with Ray and say the fight makes sense. How do I put those two together is that the 205 division right now is so tied up that who else would you have Rashad fight without taking a huge step down in competition? So for that right there, it makes sense for him to fight Little Nog, even though I feel it's a big mismatch because Little Nog has trouble with wrestlers, even though he's shown that he could stuff takedowns, but Rashad's definitely probably the top wrestler in the division next to Jones. But he's probably a better overall wrestler than John Jones. I just really don't see how Nog wins this unless if he could just, like I said with the Barry fight, hit him with that one-hitter quitter, as I like to call it. And we know that Rashad definitely could get knocked out. We've seen it with Machida. But the chances of that order happening are very slim to none.
Strength of competition, boys. Strength of competition.
Deja vu.
Let's take a look at the strength of competition, man. This is ridiculous.
That was a great line the first time. You got to stop copying people.
Hey, I'm really, really sorry for cutting you off, Dave. I was looking at the wrong queue up for that one. My mistake.
Sorry.
I'm not an actual asshole. I promise.
I'm a chap.
It's all good.
Yeah, so, strength of competition is the name of the game. Rashad Evans has fought some of the best in the business. He's only been finished once by Lyoto Machida, and that was the only fight that wasn't competitive. That's just a bad stylistic matchup. As much as I don't like the guy, he has a fantastic game. He went on a real tear, knocking people out, got knocked out, became boring, and then really refound himself when he joined a new team. He went away from Jackson's. He joined the Black Zillions. He's looked phenomenal since then. I mean, he absolutely destroyed Tito Ortiz, and he beat the living shit out of Phil Davis, and then was very competitive against John Jones. Little Nog, nobody can take anything away from his skill set or his game. He is one of the best in the world, but I have never understood how he got into the top 10 off of wins over Jason Brills and Louise Kane. I mean, he lost to Bader, he lost to Davis, and he beat Ortiz. Ultimately, Rashad is better than Bader and Davis combined. So, I've got Rashad winning this by a decision. I don't think he can knock out or submit Little Nogueira.
Ooh, yeah, those brothers are both known for having iron chins. Honestly, I don't know why I said Pat Barry had an iron chin. I guess it sounded good, but the Nog brothers truly do have iron chins. And one last fight matchup, which is a fight we've known about for a while, but we didn't really know when it was going to get rescheduled. Jose Aldo versus Frankie Edgar, originally supposed to fight at UFC 153. It was a fight that was replaced with Anderson Silva and Stephan Bonner, and it's now rumored that it's going to be made in January. Apparently, Aldo is recovering from that foot injury quite well and will be ready to go in just a few months' time. I really think Frankie Edgar is going to give Aldo some problems that he's never faced before. I don't know if he's fought anyone as quick as Frankie Edgar, with as crisp boxing as Frankie Edgar. I think Frankie Edgar is a better wrestler than Chad Mendes. You know, Frankie's a guy who beat BJ Penn, beat Gray Maynard, and I always kind of stutter when I go to talk about Aldo, because I don't know whether his first name is Josie or Jose. I'm going to go ahead and mix it up. Jose. Yeah.
Jose.
It's
Jose.
Jose. Jose. And I really think, you know, every fight that Aldo's had in the past few years, I've immediately said, oh, well, Aldo's going to win that one. And I'm not as quick to do it in this fight. I think that Edgar has spectacular head movement, is very good leaping in and out. I don't think he's going to sustain a lot of damage against Aldo. And honestly, I think Frankie Edgar is going to win this one by decision.
Olive Garden.
Olive Garden, butthole.
Okay, so Frankie Edgar is a guy that has been underestimated his entire career. I myself am a small guy. I'm 5'8", not a really big guy, so I've always rooted for him. I mean, he's done amazing things at lightweight. He beat Shirk, he beat Veach, he beat Penn the second time, not that first time, but he beat him the second time, and he defended his title successfully with a finish against Gray Maynard, and arguably won both fights against Benson Henderson. So a guy who is small found his niche by using excellent movement, head movement, and boxing, and I think that he is the perfect test for Jose Aldo, because I'm sorry, Uriah Faber and Chad Mendes have nothing on Frankie Edgar. I think Frankie Edgar would beat the living daylights out of those guys, so I think this is a very compelling match, and I think it's kind of a fresh start for the division, because it's really going to show all the guys at featherweight that Jose Aldo is human. Jose Aldo may win, but I know that Frankie Edgar will gut it out and have beautiful moments in that fight, and that'll kind of show everyone in the top 10 at featherweight that they can do it as well.
Yeah, I personally feel that Frankie Edgar definitely could win this fight. I feel as if the longer the fight goes, the bigger his chances are, because we've seen Aldo start to gas a little bit in the future, and we know that Edgar is basically the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going and going and going and going. Even when he gets rocked and close to finished, I mean, the guy is just a freaking animal. I mean, there's no other way around it. Could he stand toe-to-toe with Aldo? That's the big thing, because Aldo definitely has some very, very good striking. But, you know, Edgar was fighting at a class where the guys are 10 pounds heavier and probably hit a little bit harder than the featherweight. So I think there's a very good chance that Edgar could win this fight.
I think it's going to be a great fight. Obviously, it's a fight we've been waiting to see for a long time. It feels like it's a coin flip. I mean, we obviously know how dominant Aldo is at 145, but Edgar looked good at 155 against, like we said, bigger guys. Edgar is definitely a threat. If they go toe-to-toe, I think Aldo could get the finish. I agree with that. The longer the fight goes on, the more it will suit Edgar. I mean, Mark Hominick had Aldo mounted for a long time in that fifth round. I have got a feeling that Aldo will get a finish. I think he'll knock Edgar out. I'm going to make that prediction. He'll get a knockout.
Damn, yeah. It's you never know with either of these guys, because Frank, obviously a dude who did work at lightweight. He didn't cut any weight, fought at 155 pounds, but you can never take the knockout off the table for Jose Aldo, because, you know, other than John Jones and Anderson Silva, potentially the two greatest fighters the sport's ever seen, Jesus Christ, he is an absolute dynamo standing up. And whether it's punches or kicks, head kicks, leg kicks, the guy is an absolute destroyer, and I'm really excited to see him fight easily his toughest opponent yet in Frankie Edgar, and that's obviously going to be a fight that I'm glued to the screen for. Let's talk about one more topic before we wrap it up and put a bow on it. Vanderlei Silva saying he's done fighting at middleweight and he's going to move up to 205 pounds at light heavyweight. he's not necessarily a title contender at either division. He isn't going to be fighting Anderson Silva for the middleweight strap. Isn't going to be fighting John Jones for the light heavyweight strap. He's definitely an elite gatekeeper, and he can beat some top guys, and he has beat some top guys even of recently. But I think I would rather see him fight at light heavyweight. He fought at 205 in Pride, which was obviously the prime of his career, and thinking about how high he could achieve, what levels he could achieve in the 205-pound division, I'll kind of pose the question to you all. You have so many of these freak athletes fighting at light heavyweight. You have Phil Davis, obviously. You have Ryan Bader, who I think can probably bench press a moose. You have Alexander Gustafsson, who has beautiful footwork. He is the Dominic Cruz of the 205-pound division. Obviously, superstars from Pride like himself, like Quentin Rampage Jackson and Shogun Hua. I don't see him beating any of those guys, but I see him being a logical step from those top 10 elite guys down to guys who aren't necessarily of that skill level. Like, no one's popping in my mind immediately, like, say, a Brandon Vera. I think Vanderlei versus Brandon Vera would be a really interesting fight, and I was kind of curious how far you see Vanderlei Silva going in the 205-pound division.
Personally, I think Vanderlei Silva's around the UFC, for one reason, really, and that's because of what he's done in the past. And, he's exciting to watch. Win or lose, he brings it every single time. Whatever division Vanderlei Silva's in, he's never going to make an impact, and that's just a fact. He's way past his best. Unfortunately, the guy can't take a punch anymore. We've seen his fight against Chris Lieben. Now, let's not forget, Chris Lieben is probably a top 15 guy at best. He's never been top 10, really, and Lieben finished Silva within somewhere like 30 seconds. I love watching Vanderlei Silva fight. I can see why he probably wants to go to 205. It's probably too difficult for him to get down to 185 at this stage of his career. It doesn't take away from what he's done in Pride. He was amazing in Pride. He was certainly one of the standouts to come over. He's had a few great moments in the UFC. Everyone will remember his fight against Keith Jardine. That was one of his highlights. His epic three-round fight with Chuck Liddell. It's a shame we didn't get to see that when they were both early on in their career, but that was still a great fight, even though he lost. His 5-round fight with Rich Franklin was good, even though he lost. It's a shame. I'd like to have seen him get the fight with Vitor Belfort just because of what happened in their first fight all that time ago. But yeah, I don't mind where he fights, and regardless of the fact he's never going to make an impact in any division, I still look forward to his fights because he's still exciting to watch. But I don't mind what division he fights in, to be honest with you.
It's funny that you bring up Belfort versus Vanderlei, because that, just to give you a perspective how long ago that was Thanksgiving 2011, man. Like, when we realized that, they announced that's how long ago that was. And, Vanderlei has had a less than great UFC career. And, I think I'm just kind of reiterating what you said, but he goes in there and he fights. I mean, he should have won that Rich Franklin fight at UFC 99. He should have won that. He beat Michael Bisping, and that was a close fight, but he did put the cap on it in the last, 10 seconds. And the man goes out there and he fights. I thought after that Chris Lieben fight that he was done, getting knocked out in 27 seconds. I thought it was over. He still wants to go, and he had a 5-rounder with Rich Franklin. I mean, he still has some gas left in the tank, so ultimately, whatever weight class he wants to go out there and compete in, I'm going to support it. He's done enough for the sport. If he still wants to compete and he's not slurring his words like Chuck Liddell, more power to him. As far as him competing at 205, compelling matchups are definitely there who aren't near the top 15. So I think that's a great move, because at middleweight, it's a murderer's row.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me, since Juan is definitely one of my top 3 favorites of all time. I personally would rather see him stick at 185. He put on some great fights over the past couple of years there. It sucks that for him and Franklin, they can't sit there and get a 195-pound class, because those guys would do great in that class. But I just don't really see the sense of him going back up to 205. He's doing good there. He had a great fight with Kung Lei. That's a fight you forgot, Chris. But why bother going to 205? I just don't see it. He's making 185 without a problem. It's not like he's coming in overweight or anything. There's some good matchups there left for him. If I was him, I would just stick it out there. I don't like him going to 205 at all. There might only be one fight left for him in his career if he goes back to 205.
Definitely. He's got a very interesting career. Did beat, his last two opponents are actually headlining the next UFC card, Rich Franklin and Kung Lee. Looked really impressive against Lee. A lot of people didn't know whether Lee was going to come in here and just absolutely take over the middleweight division with those crazy spinning back kicks. But Vanderlei Silva with, the knees and punches, getting that second round victory at UFC 139 in a fight, I believe, one fight of the night. The one thing you really can say about him, he's been an underdog in a lot of his last fights, which is crazy, thinking that, he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. He was an underdog in both fights against Rich Franklin, an underdog against Bisping, an underdog against Lieben, an underdog against Kung Lee, an underdog against Rampage, and still, is 2-4 in all of those fights, but still goes out there and fights his ass off. I'm in the same boat as you, Dave. He's actually my second favorite fighter of all time behind BJ Penn. And I love seeing the guy get out there. Didn't look drawn out at 185, but definitely looks skinny, and it'll be interesting to see what exactly happens there. Ray, did you want to shout out your Fight Busters clues one more time before we close this thing up?
Yeah, let me just get them up. Okay,
all right.
The three clues. Number one, the first clue, and obviously these are all fighters and cryptic clues. Close to being a disgrace, driving not to lose. That's clue number one. Clue number two, I'm pointing in your direction. Don't kick my leg. Are you surprised that I can't drive? Moi. And clue number three, getting sexual with a biro.
Getting sexual with a biro, which if you
I'm
don't
really
feel
surprised you haven't got that one, because that's a really easy one.
With a ballpoint pen. Getting sexual with a ballpoint pen. I don't understand that one whatsoever, and I'm sure when I find out...
Yeah, you've got it.
BJ Penn.
Oh, BJ Penn, you dirty bitch.
That was a good
That's
one, though.
awesome.
I mean,
That's
wasn't
awesome.
as easy as you thought it would be.
That's the easiest one. The other two are hard. The other two I have to think about.
The other two will...
Once we have the definition of a viral, I mean...
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. There's only one pen in the sport.
Yeah.
True. I was thinking way too far with it.
Really not.
I don't think Regan's a sexual term, whatever his name is.
No, definitely not.
I don't know how I was thinking of Nick Penner, but I didn't think of BJ Penn, even though he's my favorite fighter. I kind of dropped the ball on that one. Thanks again for everyone who listened, and you can catch us every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. You want to go down that guest list one more time, Ray?
Yeah, so on the show this week, we have got... Geese. I've got Mike Wilkinson from Tough Smashes, Brian Rogers, fresh off his win on Friday for Bellator, where he completely battered the guy he was fighting. It was such an impressive performance. Marcus Brimage and Pat Miletich have all agreed to be on the show this week.
Nice, and like I said before, we think we're going to have Schiavello. It isn't confirmed yet. Stay tuned to our Twitter, and I'll post that up on the website, which is the MMApodcast.com, once we have a guest lined up. It sounds like Ray is lining up 8 balls of Coke in the background there, which I'm sure he is. He's a crazy Brit, and that's what they do, those crazy Brits. But, definitely check out MMA Mental if you haven't yet. You can go to MMAmental.com. I know if you're listening to us on iTunes, then you're already subscribed to the MMA Podcast, so thank you for doing that. And like I said, we're every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and we will send it off. Thank you again, Dave, for popping on with us. It was a pleasure to have you on, and a pleasure to listen to you strip the tweet of the week away from Chris. He was obviously very upset about that, and it's always fun to see Chris very upset. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and for Chris, Dave, and Ray, we gone.